You ever live with a kind of pain that don't sleep when you do? Mine sits with me at the breakfast table, in the passenger seat, even hums along when I'm doing dishes. It's the sound of my son's silence. Malik used to be my heartbeat, my baby boy with those big brown eyes and a laugh that filled every corner of this house. But now, when he visits, he stands in the doorway like a stranger. Doesn't hug me. Doesn't look at me long. Just drops his car keys on the table and says, "You still blaming yourself, Ma?" I don't even answer anymore. They say time heals. But whoever said that never had their own child look at them like they're a murderer. Because that's what Malik sees when he looks at me. And maybe he's right. Maybe I did kill his father. Not with my hands, but with my words that night. Words that sent Derrick storming out the door, into the rain, into that car he never came back from. I replay it every single night. The fight, the slam of the door, the sound of tires cutting through wet asphalt. And that last thing I ever said to him, "I'm done, Derrick. You walk out now, don't come back." He didn't. People told me it wasn't my fault. But they didn't see Malik at the funeral, 10 years old, standing by his daddy's coffin, whispering, "You made him mad, Mama." Those words never left me. They became my shadow. Years later, he still can't look me in the eye. He thinks I drove his father to his death. And the cruelest part? I never told him what really happened that night. Not the truth, not the reason Derrick left, not the things that were found in that police report. Because some truths break more than they fix. But now, as I sit here at the kitchen table, staring at that old drawer with Derrick's name on it, I know I can't keep it buried forever. Malik deserves to know, even if it destroys what little we have left. Still, part of me wonders, when he learns the truth, will he hate me even more? Tomorrow, I'm opening that drawer. And once I do, there's no going back. Funny how a house can still look full but feel empty. I keep the same curtains Derrick picked out, the same chipped coffee mugs, even that old couch with the burn mark from when Malik tried to toast marshmallows inside the living room. Back then, laughter lived here, loud and messy. Now it's just the hum of the fridge and the echo of what used to be. Malik comes by sometimes. Not to see me, though. He comes for the mail, for old documents, for things that used to belong to his father. He don't even take his shoes off anymore. Just walks in like he's passing through a stranger's home. Last week, he stood in the doorway, tall now, a man, and asked, "You ever gonna get rid of Dad's stuff?" I told him, "Those things are all I got left of him." He just shrugged and said, "You had a choice, Ma." He didn't. Then he turned, walked right out before I could even breathe. I sat on that couch for hours afterward, holding Derrick's jacket, the one that still smells faintly of him after all these years. There's a tear on the sleeve from the night he left. Sometimes I trace that rip with my fingers, wondering if that's where my marriage tore too. The truth is, I've built a museum of my pain. Every picture frame, every cup, every drawer. It all whispers about the night my family cracked apart. But even with all those ghosts around, it's Malik's absence that's the loudest thing in this house. He doesn't know I still watch his old basketball videos online, the ones his college posted. I sit there, proud and broken, whispering, "That's my boy." Like he can somehow hear me through the screen. He hasn't called in months, but I still set an extra plate at dinner just in case. Sometimes, when the wind howls through the cracks in the kitchen window, I imagine it's Malik's voice again, that little boy calling, "Mama, come look at me." Then I blink and the only thing looking back is an empty chair. Still, tonight something feels different. The air feels heavier, like the past trying to crawl its way back into this house, and deep down, I know, when the truth starts whisperin', it don't stop till you listen. I remember that night like it's burned into my bones. The air was thick, heavy with that kind of silence that comes before a storm. The rain was already knocking on the windows when Derrick came home, shirt half untucked, smelling like whiskey and cheap perfume. I was standing by the sink, drying dishes. I didn't even have to look up to know where he'd been. "Late again?" I asked, keeping my voice low. He sighed. "Loretta, don't start tonight. I had a long day. I turned then, faced him, eyes stinging. A long day at the bar or with her? That's when his jaw tightened, that look I knew too well. He took a step closer. You watch your mouth. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You watching yours, Derrick? Or is that her job now? He slammed his hand down on the counter so hard the plate I was holding cracked in two. For a second, we just stared at each other, me breathing fast, him trembling with rage. You push me, woman. Every damn time, he said, voice rising. And you break me, Derrick. Every damn time! I shot back. He grabbed his keys, face twisted. You always gotta turn this house into a war zone. I followed him to the door, heart pounding. You walk out that door, Derrick Johnson, and you don't come back till you figure out who you are. He spun around, eyes glassy, finger pointed right in my face. Careful what you wish for. Then the door slammed so hard the frame shook. Rain burst in through the cracks, thunder rolling over the roof. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there shaking, the broken plate still in my hand, listening to the sound of his car starting, the engine revving like he wanted the world to hear his anger. Malik came running down the stairs, pajamas on, eyes wide. Mama, what's going on? I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. Go back to bed, baby. But then we both heard it, tires screeching down the road, a horn blaring, and nothing after that. I dropped the plate. It shattered on the floor, the same sound my heart made that night. That was the last sound I ever heard from Derrick. And I didn't know it yet. But Malik heard every word I said before he left. Grief got a sound to it. It ain't always crying or wailing. Sometimes it's the sound of nothing at all. That's what filled this house after Derrick died. Nothing. No TV, no laughter, no good mornings. Just Malik's footsteps, slow and heavy, like he was walking through mud. The funeral was packed, but I barely remember any of it. All I can see, even now, is Malik, standing there in that too big suit, his small hands gripping the edge of his daddy's coffin. He didn't cry. Not one tear. He just looked at me with eyes too old for his face. Afterward, people whispered their condolences. Stay strong, Loretta. But all I wanted was for my boy to look at me and not see the enemy. Instead, that night, I found him sitting in Derrick's recliner, whispering to himself. When I asked what he was doing, he said quietly, talking to Dad. Then he turned those eyes on me and said the words that still cut me open. You made him mad. If you didn't yell, he'd still be here. I froze. I wanted to hold him, explain, scream, anything. But my voice just wouldn't come. So I did what I've done ever since that night. I stayed quiet. Maybe part of me thought I deserved his hate. Years went by like that. Every time he grew taller, his anger grew with him. By middle school, he stopped asking for help with homework. By high school, he stopped calling me Mama. I became her, as in, I ain't going home with her. Once, his teacher called to say he'd gotten in a fight. When I showed up at the office, Malik wouldn't even look my way. I don't need you here, he muttered. But when I saw the bruise on his cheek, I still reached out, trying to touch it. He flinched like my hand was fire. I drove home that day with both hands gripping the wheel, crying so hard I could barely see the road. It hit me then. I lost my husband once, but I've been losing my son in slow motion ever since. And the worst part? He never once asked what really happened that night. He didn't want truth. He wanted someone to blame. And for 15 years, I let him blame me. But now, that truth in the drawer is done waitin'. There's a drawer in my kitchen that creaks when you pull it open, the one right under the silverware. Inside, there's a stack of old receipts, birthday cards, and a single manila envelope I ain't touched in 15 years. Every time I open that drawer, my hand stops right before it, like my body remembers what my heart still can't face. That envelope holds the police report from the night Derrick died. Back when the officer handed it to me, I didn't even open it. I just nodded, signed whatever paper he gave me, and tucked it away like the truth was too sharp to touch. But one rainy night, months later, I finally did. The words blurred through my tears. Alcohol level, single vehicle, no seatbelt, fatal impact. And then there was the detail that nearly broke me. strong scent of whiskey noted at the scene. I sat on the floor that night, holding that paper, whispering, "You lied to me, Derrick." Because he'd told me he was done drinking. He swore he was trying. And maybe he was. But trying don't always mean changing. Still, I never told Malik any of it. How could I? He was just a boy who lost his hero. I couldn't take that from him too. So I let him hate me instead. And in some twisted way, that hate kept him close. But now, all these years later, I can feel time closing in. Malik's a grown man with his own life, a fiancé, a career, a future that barely includes me. And I'm still sitting here, talking to ghosts and hiding truths like they're family heirlooms. I pulled that drawer open last night. My hands trembled when I picked up the envelope. The paper's yellowed now, the ink fading. There's even a photo clipped to the back. Derrick's car, mangled metal glinting under police lights. I still remember that sound. The rain, the sirens, the way the night swallowed my scream. I wanted to tell Malik right then. Pick up the phone, say, "Baby, it wasn't me. It was your daddy's choices." But how do you rewrite a whole lifetime of pain in one phone call? So I closed the drawer again. Because once the truth comes out, it can't ever go back in. But deep down, I know that envelope ain't gonna stay quiet forever. And when Malik sees what's inside, everything between us will change. I knew he was coming before he even knocked. A mother can always feel her child's footsteps long before she hears them. The air changed, that same heaviness that fills a room when you know a storm's about to hit. I opened the door, and there he was, Malik, my son. Tall, sharp around the edges, eyes colder than January. "Hey, Ma," he said, flat as a board. I smiled anyway. "Hey, baby, you eat yet?" He stepped past me without answering, holding a small stack of envelopes. "Got some of Dad's stuff still coming here." He placed the mail on the counter like he was dropping off evidence. I tried small talk. "How's work?" "Fine. How's Jasmine?" "She's good." His answers came clipped, like he was cutting the conversation off with scissors. I watched him open the fridge, grab a bottle of water, his father's same habit, then lean on the counter, scrolling through his phone. The distance between us felt wider than the whole room. "You still keepin' all this?" he asked, eyes flicking toward the framed photo of me and Derrick on our wedding day. "Some memories are worth keepin'," I said quietly. He scoffed. "Depends on whose memory you talkin' about." I felt my throat tighten. "Malik!" He looked up, his jaw tense. Just don't, Ma. We've been through this." I whispered. "You mean you been through this? I just been waitin' for you to come back." For a second, something flickered behind his eyes, a softness I hadn't seen in years. But then it was gone. He grabbed his keys, muttering, "You don't get to play Mom after what you did." The door closed behind him with that same hollow thud I've heard my whole life, the sound of love walking away. I stood there staring at the mail he'd left on the counter. One of the envelopes was addressed to Derrick Johnson, deceased. That one hit me square in the chest. The world still sending letters to a man who's been gone 15 years, while my own son barely sends me a text. I sat down, that old ache burning in my chest again. And as I looked toward the kitchen drawer, that one that creaks when it opens, I knew the truth was starting to breathe again. Because the next time Malik walks through that door, he won't leave without finally learning what really happened to his father. I used to tell myself I could forget that night if I just stayed busy. Cook enough dinners, fold enough laundry, keep the TV loud enough. Maybe the memories would fade. But memories got claws, and that night still digs into me like it happened yesterday. Derrick came home angry, not the usual kind, not his had a bad day at work mad. This was a different kind of fire. I smelled the whiskey before I even saw him. He stumbled through the doorway, mumbling something under his breath. "Where you been?" I asked, arms crossed. He threw his jacket on the floor. "Out," I said. "Out where?" He turned, eyes bloodshot. "Don't start with me, Loretta. Not tonight. That was all it took." The weeks of late nights, the rumors, the perfume I didn't wear. It all came rushing up my throat. "Not tonight," I said. "You've been saying that for months, Derrick. He laughed, that ugly, tired laugh that don't reach the eyes. You think you perfect, huh? You think I ain't tired of your mouth? Then go, I said, my voice breaking. If you hate it here so much, go. He grabbed his keys, slurring, You gon' regret that. I followed him out into the rain, my heart thumping like it was trying to warn me. Derrick, please, you ain't in no shape to drive, I shouted. He turned, water dripping off his face. You don't tell me what to do. Then he shoved me, not hard, but enough to make me stumble. That's when Malik appeared at the top of the stairs, his little face pale as the moon. Daddy? He said softly. Derrick froze for a second. Something in his eyes changed, shame maybe, or just tiredness. Then he turned, got in the car, and sped off into the dark. I stood there, rain soaking through my nightgown, my hands shaking. A few minutes later, the siren started. I ran down that road barefoot, screaming his name, but by the time I got there, it was already over. The car was twisted, steam rising off it like smoke from hell itself. The officer who stopped me said, Ma'am, you can't go closer. But I already knew. I could feel it. My husband was gone. And all the while, Malik stood on the porch behind me, watching everything, hearing none of it. Just seeing his daddy leave angry and his mama crying. He never knew what really happened after that car drove off. But the truth? It didn't die with Derrick that night. It's been waiting, right here in this drawer, ever since. The night it happened, the rain never stopped. It beat against the windows like it was trying to wash the whole world clean, but it couldn't wash the sound out of my head. Tires screeching, glass breaking, then silence. The kind that don't feel empty. It feels final. I stood there in the living room, dripping wet, still clutching Derrick's jacket. Malik sat on the stairs in his pajamas, clutching that little teddy bear his daddy won him at the fair. He didn't say a word. He just kept staring at the front door like he was waiting for it to open. Then came the knock. 2 officers. One young, one old. Both with that look people get when they don't know how to hand someone the worst news of their life. The older one took his hat off, voice soft. Ma'am, there's been an accident. Your husband, he didn't make it. I swear my knees gave out before I could even cry. The young officer caught me, helped me to the couch, but I could barely breathe. My whole world shrank down to the sound of my son's small voice behind me. Mama? I turned. He was still clutching that bear. His lip trembled. Where's Daddy? He whispered. I opened my mouth, but no words came. The truth got stuck somewhere between my heart and my throat. And before I could find the strength to answer, Malik looked at me, looked at my wet nightgown, the broken plate on the floor, the storm still howling outside. And I saw it in his eyes. He already knew what happened. And worse, he thought it was because of me. He didn't cry that night. He didn't scream. He just walked upstairs, quiet as a shadow, and closed his door. The next morning, the house was too still. Even the rain had stopped, like it had said what it needed to say. The police came again to ask questions, take statements. I told them everything. Everything except the part about the shove. Didn't see no point in that. Didn't want to make him a villain after death. But maybe I should have told it all. Maybe then my son would have understood I wasn't the monster he made me out to be. Because from that night on, Malik stopped calling me Mama and started calling me the woman who killed his father. There's a look a child gives their mama that can melt the hardest heart. But when that look turns cold, it can freeze your soul solid. Malik used to look at me with love so pure it could light up the darkest night. Now, every time our eyes met, I saw nothing but blame. He stopped sitting next to me at breakfast. Stopped letting me brush his hair before school. If I tried to kiss his forehead, he'd flinch like my love burned. Mama, he said once, voice low. Why you make Daddy mad? My throat closed up. Baby, I didn't... But he cut me off. If you hadn't yelled, he wouldn't have left. He was 10, and already he'd built his own version of the truth. And in that version, I was the villain. I tried to reach him through kindness, packed his lunches with little notes that said, I love you. He'd throw them away without reading. When I'd sit on the edge of his bed at night, He'd pretend to be asleep. One night, I heard him whisper to the dark, "I wish Daddy was here instead of her." That one almost broke me. At school, teachers said he was quiet. Too quiet. He stopped drawing pictures of our family. When he did, it was just him and Derrick, no mama in sight. I wanted to scream, to tell someone, "I'm still here. I didn't do this." But who was going to listen? Every birthday, I tried to make it right. Every cake, every gift, every forced smile. All just little offerings to a God named forgiveness that never showed up. Sometimes he'd ask questions about the crash. "Was Daddy mad at you when he left? Why didn't you stop him?" Each one like a knife I couldn't pull out. And every time I tried to tell him the truth, my voice just broke into silence. Because how do you tell your son that his daddy, his hero, was drunk and angry when he died? How do you crush a memory that's the only thing keeping him whole? So I said nothing. And silence became the third person living in our house, louder than both of us. He grew colder as the years went on. By middle school, he stopped calling me Mama. By high school, I'd become her. And by the time he turned 18, I could already feel him slipping away for good. But I didn't know. The day he finally walked out that door, he'd take the last piece of my heart with him. The morning Malik packed his bags, the air in that house felt heavy. Like even the walls knew what was about to happen. I stood in the doorway, hands trembling around a mug of coffee I didn't even sip. He didn't say a word, just moved from his room to the front door, one suitcase at a time, like he was taking pieces of my life with him. "Malik," I whispered, "you don't have to go like this." He zipped up the last bag, eyes hard, jaw set. "I can't stay here anymore, Loretta." That name hit me like a slap. He hadn't called me that since he was a little boy trying to sound grown for fun. Now it was cold, final, like a verdict being read. "Please," I said, stepping closer. "At least tell me where you're going," he shrugged. "Anywhere but here." I reached for his arm, but he pulled away like my touch was poison. "You think I forgot what you did?" he said, voice breaking. "You killed him, Mama, you did. I couldn't breathe." All those years of silence came crashing down in one moment, and all I could say was, "That's not true." But he just shook his head. "Then why you never told me what really happened?" And right there, I didn't have an answer, not one that could save us. He opened the door, sunlight spilling in, catching the dust in the air like tiny ghosts. He looked back once, not at me, but at the family photo on the wall. The three of us smiling, frozen in a happiness that no longer existed. Then he was gone. No hug, no goodbye. Just the sound of the car engine fading down the road, taking my son with it. I stood there for hours, staring at the empty driveway. The neighbors came and went. The sun set. Still, I waited, because a mother's heart don't know how to stop hoping. That night, I went to his room. The bed was made, drawers empty, shelves bare. But on the nightstand was that old teddy bear, the one his daddy won him at the fair. He'd left it behind, and I didn't know if that meant he was done with his childhood, or done with me. I sat on that bed and finally cried. Not the quiet tears I'd been shedding for years, but the kind that tear through your soul, the kind that make you realize you're mourning someone who's still alive. I thought losing Derrick was the worst pain I'd ever feel. But I was wrong. Losing Malik's love hurt worse than death itself. After Malik left, the house got too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that soothes your soul. The kind that crawls under your skin. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, felt like it was mocking me. I'd wake up expecting to hear his alarm, his footsteps, his deep teenage sighs. But all I got was silence. At first, I tried to call him. He'd never pick up. Then one day, the number just stopped working. I wrote letters, sent Christmas cards. Each one came back marked "Return to Sender." That was the year I stopped celebrating holidays. What's the point of a Christmas tree when there's nobody left to open the presents? I poured myself into work, double shifts at the diner just to stay busy. The regulars would ask, "How's your boy doing, Loretta?" I'd force a smile and say, "He's grown. Doing fine." Then I'd turn my back and swallow the lie like bitter medicine. On my lunch breaks, I'd sit outside by the dumpsters, watching the kids from the high school walk by. Every time I saw one in a Letterman jacket, I'd wonder if Malik ever wore his. If he graduated. If anyone clapped for him. Some nights I'd dream he came home. He'd walk through that door, same as always, but taller now. A man. He'd call me Mama again, tell me he finally understood. I'd wake up smiling. Then reality would hit like a punch to the chest. Years slipped by like that. Slow, heavy, unforgiving. My hair grayed faster than it should have. My hands got rough from washing too many dishes, working too many hours. But it wasn't the years that aged me. It was the waiting. Every time I saw a mother and son laughing in the diner, I'd look away. Not out of jealousy, out of shame. Because deep down, I believed I deserved this silence. For lying, for keeping the truth buried just to protect a dead man's pride. Still, no matter how much pain I carried, I couldn't bring myself to hate Malik. I prayed for him every night, that he'd find peace, even if it meant never coming home. Then one day, a letter showed up. No return address, no name. Just one line written in a handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Are you still living at the same house? My hands trembled as I read it, because for the first time in 15 years my son had reached out. And I didn't know if he wanted forgiveness and or revenge. I must have read that letter 100 times before I believed it was real. 15 years of silence and suddenly, one line. No love, Malik, no apology. No anger either. Just a question that felt like a test. Are you still living at the same house? My first thought wasn't joy. It was fear. Because after all that time, I didn't know what he wanted from me. Did he finally want to talk? Or did he just want to reopen the wound we'd both been bleeding from all these years? I sat at the kitchen table, staring at that paper under the yellow light. The same table where he used to do his homework. The same light that once shined over our family dinners. Now it felt like it was interrogating me. I picked up a pen, my hand shaking so bad I had to hold it with the other. Then I wrote back, "Yes, baby. I'm still here. Always have been. If you want to talk, you know where to find me. Love, Mama." I didn't know if love was too much. Did I even have the right to say that anymore? But I wrote it anyway, because a mother's heart don't run on logic. I mailed that letter the next morning, my stomach in knots the whole way to the post office. Days turned into weeks. Nothing. Every time the mail truck rolled up, I'd peek through the curtains like some nervous ghost. But he never wrote back. Then one night, maybe 2 months later, I came home from work and saw it. A black car parked across the street. Engine off, windows tinted, but I could feel someone watching me. I stood on the porch, clutching my purse, pretending to fumble for my keys. That car didn't move, didn't even flick its headlights, and my heart started pounding, half in fear, half in hope. "Malik?" I whispered, even though I knew he couldn't hear me. Then, just like that, the engine started, and the car pulled away. Slow, silent, gone before I could even step off the porch. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow looked like a memory. I didn't know if I'd imagined it. But deep down, something told me. My son had come back to see for himself. Not to talk, not yet, just to make sure I was still here. And I was... But what he didn't know was... I'd been waiting 15 years to tell him the truth that could destroy us both. It was a Saturday morning, the kind that starts quiet, with sunlight sneaking through the blinds and the smell of coffee filling the air. I'd just sat down at the kitchen table, same seat I always took when I heard it. 3 knocks, not loud, but familiar. For a second, I thought my heart stopped. I knew that rhythm. You don't forget the way your baby knocks, not even after 15 years. I walked to the door slow, afraid the sound might disappear if I moved too fast. My hand hovered over the knob, trembling. Then I opened it, and there he was. Malik, older, taller, broader, but it was him, my boy. His face was hardened by years I hadn't been a part of, his eyes darker than I remembered. He had his daddy's build now, but his stance, that was mine. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Just silence. Thick, heavy, full of everything we never said. Finally, he broke it. Hey, that one word hit me harder than any I love you ever could. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. It was human. Hey, baby, I whispered. He flinched at the word baby, like it reached too far back. Then he cleared his throat. I was driving through. Thought I'd stop by. 15 years is a long drive, I said, trying to smile. He looked past me into the house. Looks the same. Yeah, I said softly. Been waiting for you to walk back in? He stepped inside, hesitant, like he was entering a memory that didn't belong to him anymore. His eyes landed on the photo still hanging by the stairs. The three of us, frozen in time. You kept that up? Didn't have the heart to take it down, I said. He didn't reply. Just kept staring at that picture like it was accusing him. Finally, he turned to me. I read the report, he said flat. My blood ran cold. The police report? He nodded. His jaw clenched. You didn't tell me he was drunk. You didn't tell me he hit you before he left. I didn't know what to say. Tears started rolling down before I could stop them. I just wanted to protect you, I whispered. He shook his head. You protected him. Not me. He turned toward the door and my chest caved in. Malik, please. He stopped. Didn't turn around. Just stood there, hand on the doorknob. And in that moment, I didn't know if he was leaving for good, or finally staying to hear the truth. Because the next thing he said changed everything. Mama, I think I need to know what really happened that night. We sat in the kitchen, the same table where he used to do homework, only now it felt smaller. Like the years had shrunk it. The rain tapped softly against the window like it was waiting for me to speak. Malik, I said, voice shaking. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. He looked at me, eyes guarded. I'm listening, he said quietly. I took a deep breath, hands gripping the edge of the table. Your father, he didn't leave because of me, I began. His brow furrowed. He wasn't angry at me in the way you think. I told him everything, every word, every shove, every choice Derrick made that night. How he'd been drinking, how he'd been driving recklessly, how the car accident. How it wasn't my fault, how I'd begged him to stay, how I'd stood in the rain, crying, watching him drive away. How I'd called the police, waited for them at the scene, prayed for a miracle that never came. Malik stayed quiet. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, letting the truth seep into him piece by piece. When I finished, the house was silent. I waited for anger, for the coldness to return, for him to walk out again, but instead, he lowered his head. And then, finally, I saw it, the boy I once knew, the son I'd mourned for 15 years breaking open. Mama, he whispered, voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared, I said softly. Scared you'd hate me even more. Scared you'd see me as the reason he's gone. He swallowed hard. I thought I hated you. I know, baby, I said, tears streaming down my face. I know. I've carried it too. He reached across the table slowly, hesitating like he wasn't sure his hands would be welcomed. And then he hugged me. For the first time since he was 10, and all those years of anger, silence, and pain melted into that hug. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't all fixed. But it was a beginning. Because that night, Malik learned the truth. And I realized forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about finally letting someone in. The next morning, the house felt different, quieter in a way that didn't hurt. Malik and I didn't rush into words. We just sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee like two strangers who had shared a secret no one else could understand. He finally smiled, small, hesitant, like sunlight peeking through storm clouds. Did you ever think I'd come back? I asked softly. He shrugged. Never. But you're here now, I said. He nodded, eyes on his cup. For the first time in years, I saw the boy I used to tuck in at night, the little hands I used to hold. the laughter that once filled the halls. Not completely, not all at once, but glimpses of him. We didn't talk about Derrick at first. It was too heavy. Instead, we talked about little things. The weather, what he'd been up to, the silly things that used to make him laugh. It felt normal, and it hurt in the best way because I'd forgotten what that felt like. He even helped me carry groceries from the car. And when I accidentally dropped a jar of sauce, he laughed. A real laugh, not the polite one he'd used for years. Something in me cracked open then, letting a little light in. I caught him looking at the drawer, the one with Derrick's police report. "You really kept all this from me?" he asked, a mix of disbelief and awe. "I wanted to protect you," I said quietly. He didn't argue. He just nodded. That night we sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. For the first time in 15 years, I felt like we were in the same world again. Not perfect, not fully healed, but present. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. Malik finally said, "Mama, I'm sorry for hating you all those years." My chest ached, but I smiled. "I'm sorry too, baby, for letting silence grow between us." We hugged again, this time longer, firmer. It wasn't magic. It wasn't like flipping a switch. It was slow, careful, messy, beautiful, because even though forgiveness has started, I know the journey isn't over, and the past still has a way of sneaking in when you least expect it. Malik hadn't stepped into his old room since the day he left. I left the door open, hesitating to follow him. He paused in the doorway, hand on the frame, like he was bracing for memories that might break him. The walls were still the same soft beige, covered in posters he'd plastered up as a kid, basketball stars, old cartoons, a couple of crumpled drawings I'd never thrown away. His bed was neatly made, as if waiting for him to return. He walked in slowly, fingertips brushing the dresser, the bookshelf. Each touch seemed careful, almost reverent, like he was trying not to disturb the ghosts of the past. "You kept everything," he said softly, voice catching. I nodded. Couldn't bring myself to toss anything. "Every little thing. It's a part of you." He picked up a baseball glove from the shelf, dust falling off it. "Daddy bought this," he murmured. "Yes," I said. "Remember when you lost it at the park, and he made you promise you'd never cry about it?" He smiled faintly, and for a moment he was 10 again. Then he saw the little trophies, the awards, the scraps of paper with notes I'd tucked in between his books. One read, "I love you, Malik, always." He held it in his hands for a long time, and I could see something shift in his chest. "I miss this," he said finally. "Missed us," I swallowed hard. "I missed you too, baby. Every day." He sank onto the bed, curling up like a boy again, and we didn't speak for a while. Just sat there, side by side, letting the quiet fill the cracks that 15 years had left. Sometimes the silence can speak louder than words. He finally said, "It's weird, being here again. Feels like I'm seeing my childhood through new eyes." "That's what happens when you grow up," I said softly. "You see the past and you see yourself in it. And sometimes it hurts." He nodded, looking out the window at the backyard, the same yard where he and Derrick had played basketball, where he'd learned to ride his bike, where laughter used to echo. Now, that yard felt like a bridge, connecting the boy he used to be and the man he's becoming. We stayed there for hours, talking about small things, memories, regrets, funny stories. No blame, no judgment, just healing. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt it. The walls of our house weren't just memories anymore. They were proof that we could start again. We sat in the living room that night, lights low, rain tapping gently on the windows. Malik's hands were folded in his lap, jaw tight, like he was holding back years of grief and anger all at once. I didn't rush him. I didn't push. I just let him sit there, letting the weight of the silence settle around us. Finally, he spoke. I never knew the whole story," he said softly, voice barely above a whisper. I thought you hated him, or that you made him mad that night." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Baby, I never hated him. I loved him and more than anything. But he made choices that night that nobody could control. And I didn't want to burden you with that truth. He looked at me, eyes wide, searching. So, it wasn't your fault? No, I said firmly, taking his hand in mine. It wasn't your fault either, Malik. And it sure as hell wasn't mine. It was just a tragedy. Life is messy sometimes, baby. He nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. I hated myself for hating you, he admitted, voice cracking. I blamed you, because I was angry, scared, and I didn't understand. I just needed someone to blame. I pulled him into my arms. For a long time, we just held each other, letting the grief that had built up for 15 years finally flow. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about acknowledging it, sharing it, and finally, not carrying it alone. He pulled back, wiped his eyes, and gave a small, shaky laugh. Mom, you should have told me sooner. I know, baby, I said. I was scared, but you're here now, and that's what matters. We spent hours talking, reliving small memories, the good and the painful. The moments that made Derrick's absence a constant ache, but also the moments that reminded us of love. For the first time, it felt like we were building a bridge over the years of silence and resentment, and even though the pain was still there, it was lighter now. Because grief shared is grief halved, and a mother's love is stronger than years of misunderstanding. That night, we realized something powerful, that truth isn't just about facts, it's about healing hearts. And for the first time in 15 years, ours were starting to mend. It hit me like a surprise sunrise, the sound of his laughter. Not the forced, polite kind, but real, full-bodied, messy laughter that shakes your chest and makes you feel alive. We were in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. I had dropped a plate by accident. It didn't break, thankfully, but it clattered loud enough to make both of us jump. Malik looked at me, eyebrows raised. I shrugged sheepishly. Guess I still got it, I joked, trying to lighten the mood, and then it came. A laugh, deep and unguarded, echoing across the room. I laughed too, surprised by the sound of it. And just like that, the weight in the house lifted a little. For the first time in 15 years, it felt normal. The way it used to be. Before anger, before blame, before silence. We joked about little things, my cooking mishaps, the ridiculous TV shows we both pretended to like, even Malik's old teen habits that still lingered. I saw glimpses of my boy again, the one who used to make silly faces to cheer me up, who'd sneak snacks at night, who'd curl up beside me on the couch to watch cartoons. It wasn't everything, and it wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Later, we moved to the porch with mugs of tea. The sky was streaked with the soft colors of dusk, the world outside quiet except for the crickets and the distant hum of traffic. We didn't need words all the time. Just being together felt like a balm on old wounds. Malik nudged me with his shoulder. Remember that time I tried to cook pancakes by myself and set the smoke alarm off? He laughed. Oh Lord, yes. I laughed back, tears in my eyes. You burned half the batter and blamed it on the dog. He grinned, a real grin, and for a moment, it was like he'd never left. It didn't erase the years we lost. It didn't fix the pain of Derrick's death, but it reminded me that love, stubborn, patient, unshakable love, can survive even the heaviest storms. That night, as we sat side by side under the fading light, I realized sometimes laughter is the first step toward forgiveness, and it's the bridge that can bring a family back together. The days that followed felt different. Not perfect, not magically fixed, but lighter. Malik started staying longer, helping me with chores, laughing at the same jokes he used to make when he was a boy. It was like the house remembered how to breathe again. One Saturday, we decided to tackle the backyard. The garden had gone wild over the years, weeds taking over like they owned the place. Malik rolled up his sleeves, hands in dirt, and I found myself laughing at how serious he got about trimming the hedges. You're taking this too seriously, I teased. I'm making sure it's perfect, Mama, he shot back, smirking. We planted flowers, pulled weeds, and even set up a little bench where we could sit and talk. Every movement, every shared task, felt like stitching the years of distance back together. I caught him sneaking glances at me, the same boyish curiosity in his eyes I hadn't seen in ages. Later, we cooked dinner together. I showed him how to make my signature fried chicken, and he laughed when I critiqued his seasoning. "Too much salt," I said, wagging my finger. "Just enough flavor, Mama," he argued, grinning. The kitchen smelled like home again, laughter mixing with spices, warmth rising from the stove. After dinner, we dug out old photo albums. Malik flipped through pictures of birthdays, vacations, and small everyday moments I'd saved like treasures. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a photo of him on his 10th birthday, cake smeared on his face. "I can't believe I was that little," he laughed. "You'll always be my little boy," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. We didn't dwell on the past, but we acknowledged it. We talked about Derrick gently, sharing memories and feelings we hadn't dared voice before. It hurt sometimes, but it also brought us closer. And slowly, tentatively, we were learning to be mother and son again. Not just surviving the past, but living in the present. By nightfall, we sat on the porch bench, sipping lemonade and watching the stars come out. Malik leaned against me, and I felt the weight of 15 years start to lift. It wouldn't vanish overnight, but for the first time, it felt like healing was possible. Because building new memories doesn't erase the old pain, but it reminds you that love can survive, grow, and even bloom again when you least expect it. It was late evening when Malik finally stood in the doorway of my living room, hesitating like he had 1,000 thoughts trapped in his chest. I could feel it, the tension, the years of anger, grief, and distance pressing down on him, and I knew this moment would change everything. "Mama," he said softly, voice barely audible. I stepped closer, tears already blurring my vision. "Baby, it's okay." He shook his head like he didn't know how to let go of the past. I don't want to mess this up," he whispered. "Nothing to mess up, Malik. Nothing at all," I said gently, my hands reaching for his. For a long moment, we just stood there, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the soft creak of the floorboards. Then slowly he wrapped his arms around me. I felt the weight of 15 years lift from my shoulders in that hug. It wasn't just a hug. It was forgiveness, sorrow, love, regret, and hope all rolled into one. I held him tighter, feeling the tension in his body begin to melt. "I missed you, Mama," he murmured into my shoulder. "I missed you too, baby," I whispered back, my voice breaking. "I was so angry. I blamed you for everything." "It's okay," I said softly. "Now you know the truth." He pulled back just enough to look at me. "I'm sorry for all the years I hated you," he said, eyes glistening. "I know," I said, "and I'm sorry for keeping the truth from you. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now I only made the pain worse." We laughed softly through tears, a sound I thought I'd never hear again. Then he hugged me again, tighter this time, like neither of us wanted to let go. And for the first time since he was 10, I felt whole. That night, we sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, staring at the stars. We didn't need words. Just being together was enough. 15 years of silence, blame, and grief didn't disappear overnight. But in that moment, it didn't matter. Because the bridge between us was finally repaired, and I realized something important. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about opening your heart, letting someone in, and choosing to move forward. Together. That night, Malik didn't just hug me. He healed 15 years of pain. And I finally knew that love, truth, and forgiveness could bring us back from the edge of heartbreak.